それではただいまから核なき世界基金主催の講演会を始めたいと思います。本日は核なき世界基金主催による講演会にお集まりいただき、どうもありがとうございます。私は今日の講演会を主催している核なき世界基金を支援する会、広島本部の白浜と申します。本日の講演にあたり、主催者を代表して皆さんに一言ご挨拶を申し上げたいと思います。
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for attending this conference organized by the Nuclear Free World Fund. My name is Shirahama, representing the Nuclear Free World Fund, and then we're hosting the conference today. And then I would like to give a little bit of greetings to you at the beginning of this session.
5月19日から21日まで広島市で G7 サミットが開催されることになりましたが、核兵器保有国を含む G7 の首脳が世界で最初の被爆地である広島に集い、平和記念公園での慰霊と原爆資料館の訪問を行う予定であると伺っております。この G7 サミットの首脳に、広島と長崎だけではなくて、核被害を受けている世界のグローバル被爆者が実際にいらっしゃること、大きな苦しみを受けていること、その実態が伝わるように、これからマーシャル諸島から来られたエベリン、レレボー、ジアリックさんの講演を聞いていただきたいと思います。それでは、今日の講演会の司会をしてくださっている竹峰先生にバトンタッチをしたいと思います。よろしくお願いいたします。
From May 19th until 21st, there will be a G7 summit in Hiroshima, and there will be the leaders of the G7 countries will be gathering in Hiroshima, which was the first victim of the atomic bomb. And there is a plan to organize ceremony to remember this incident at the Peace Park and the Atomic Bomb Museum. My hope is that this G7 summit will be an opportunity for the G7 leaders to remember that the victims of the nuclear weapons are not limited to only Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but there are other victims in other parts of the world. And then I truly would like this opportunity to recognize those people, the sufferings of those people. So today we have Miss Evelyn visiting from the Marshall Islands, and she will talk about the experience in the Marshall Islands. And then I'll pass on to Professor Takemine, who will do the MC for this session.
Thank you. My name is Seichiro Takemine. So thank you very much, Bishop Shirahama and translator Ikuko Matsumoto. I'm very impressed their effort toward nuclear free world. So today we are focusing on the Marshall Islands. Where the Marshall Islands located? Please look at the map. Marshall Islands, really tiny islands. Here, Marshall Islands located roughly between Guam and Hawaii. It consists of 24 coral atolls and 5 single islands. Totally 29 atolls. Then, Marshall Island is really tiny place. It's quite hard to find out where the Marshall Island is in the world map. So it's recognized as one of the microstates in the world. Marshall Island is really small, micro. But at the same time, Marshall Island have been facing very big program, global issue. So one of the global issues Marshall Islands are facing is nuclear issues. So the US conducted the nuclear weapons testing between 1946 and 1958. 1946, it had been just within 1 year after the US dropped the bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Just only within 1 year, the US started the nuclear testing in the Marshall Islands, Bikini Atoll, and the Marshall Islands. It's totally 67 times the US conduct exploder, atomic, and hydrogen bomb testing in the island. And consequently, what have been happening? So we will listen soon. So today's guest is Evelyn Ralpho. She has 3 boys, and so she's a mom in Marshall Island. And today, probably she will talk about her mother. When I visited her houses, so I'm very impressed. She really had the picture of her mother, and she shared some story with her mother. So I'm really looking for listening your story, including your mama's story today. So recently, Evelyn is working as a public advocacy at the National Nuclear Commission under the RMI government, Republic of the Marshall Islands government. So I think she will also talk about what are doing now, current activity as a public advocacy at the National Nuclear Commission today. So please welcome Evelyn. A round of appreciation.
Okay. Good evening, Yakwe. Yakwe means hi in the Marshall Islands. Thank you, Jejiro-san, for always giving a lovely introduction and showing some picture that I did not know that you own. Picture of me when I was really young. As Jejiro-san was mentioning, my name is Evelyn Ralpho. And today I will be talking about my mother, where I'm from, Rongalap, myself, and my job. If you guys can look at the picture, this was taken in 1954, like a few days right after the Hibakusha. These are usually the houses back then in the outer island, in the Marshall Island. There's some outer islands that still have these kind of houses. So these are the kind of houses that we had long time ago. This is my lovely mother, who unfortunately passed away in 2012. Her name is Lijoan Aganilang. She was 66 when she passed away. My mother is Sejiro-san to show you guys a map of the Marshall Island of all the world map. But this is the map of where actually the Rongelap Island is, where my mother was born, which is up top there, you see Rongelap. In the Marshall Island, there's two chains of islands. There's Relic Chain and Ratak Chain, which is like east and west. So where my mother grew up or was born and where the bomb Bravo shot was detonated, it was in Ratak Chain. I have the picture of the cake because on 1954, it was my mother's 8th birthday. It's, if she would have seen it, she would have been a little bit of sad because instead of waking up with her family singing happy birthday to her and clapping and smiling, she woke up with the sound of this. When you listen to the survivors and how they talk about what happened that day, unfortunately, my mother was not one of those that got burned by it, but my auntie was. From my mother's words, she said she was sleeping and then they heard, said boom, a sound of boom. They don't even, it was like something just, it's not a regular boom, it was like boom. And then it got dark. And at that moment, they thought it was the end of the world. They were so scared. They were, either it's the end of the world or there's going to be another world war. It's going to start. It really scared them to death. So I'm going to talk about a little bit, move forward on. These are some picture of medicines that I took because as I was growing up, I always see my mother drinking more than 10 medicine. She was a perfectly, looked like very healthy woman, but this she needs to drink every single day, including her thyroid pill. Which is if she doesn't take it, she gets anxious and aggressive and sometimes mad if you're too late on bringing what she wants as parents. So I always try to not to walk on a eggshell when she's missing her medicine. So these medicine were given by DOE, the Department of Energy, from the U.S. government. It was part of their. It's kind of like a medicine that they gave to the survivors, not only the Rongalabis, but I believe the Utaragteates. This picture I put because it's another story about my mother. My mother had 7 miscarriages. One of her child, it came out, but it had only one eye. Okay. And this is about around 1980s, something. I was really young. And my mom, as an advocate and as an activist for nuclear, she wanted, in order for her to be heard by the local government, she ran for a councilwoman. And she was the only councilwoman back then in her island. This was taken in Washington when they went and, but it was they are having dinner. But during that time, they went and did a testimony with, in front of the U.S. government. In 1995, my mother gave a testimony at the World Court of Justice. I mean, if you guys go Google it, there's a whole lot of statement about it, so I won't go through that because you'll be easily to find it there. But I am gonna read out a quote that she told the judges and those I folks that they. Sorry, and I quote: "My purpose for traveling such a great distance to appear before the court is to plead with you, not to allow the suffering that we Marshallese have experienced to be repeated any community in the world. While no government or organization can fully restore the health of the people of the Marshall Islands or our environment, steps can be taken which will make it less likely that the same kind of horror can be experienced again. Because I know firsthand what the devastating effect of nuclear weapons are over time and over long distance. What effect means to innocent human beings over the several generations. That's the story the people of the Marshall Islands since the nuclear weapon test has been sad and painful." When I found this quote and when I read it, it totally spoke my mother. It totally spoke what she stand for. It totally spoke what she felt and what she wanted to convey that day. And I can say, when I read it, I was really proud of my mom, and I was really honored to be her daughter. Really, really, really honored that she was my mother. She not only did international advocacy, but she did domestically too. So every chance she had, she would go talk to the community and talk about nuclear justice and what happened to the Rongolabese people and whatnot. So my mother was also a musician. She was a woman of music, woman of smile, woman of she played piano, she played every kind of instrument that I was like, where did you even get her gift? I don't even know how to play. But she knew how to play those kind of things, and she knew how to sing. And I think this is one of her. She went out of Marshall Island again to do her talking, her testimony, and the guy was playing the guitar and she was singing. And then I'm gonna. I don't know how to sing, but I'm gonna read a little bit of a script of her song. Not too long because it's too long. If I knew how to sing like her, I would have sang. But if I sing, I don't think you guys probably be leaving now. So this song is. She always sing it. I have always heard her singing it at the house, but I don't even know what the song was. I don't even know it was her that even wrote the song. This song became the Rongolabese is like one of their songs where there's big events or there's a like VIP coming in, or especially on March 1st anniversary of Castle Bravo. He said, "One night I was sleeping on the porch of my place of my homeland. They call it Jalan Island. It is an isolated island near the atoll of Bikini Atoll. Bikini Atoll. So she would sing so many. There's a lot of songs that she did that I wanted to share, but Uh, in one of her songs, she was singing about thyroid pills and computer. Because those days, if computer, they say computer. Because that's how is how Marshall is pronounced, computer. Yeah, for English, it's computer. And whenever they hear the soldier or the army people say computer, oh, they say, oh, computer. They're talking about computer. They would understand it's a computer. So I don't know. My mom was. And most of all, my mom was a woman of God. She was a full-on Christian. Everything she believed in was Christian. Everything she lived through, or all her belief is always laying on God. These are her students that she taught at the school, at the church, Protestant church on Ibai. These are 7th graders, I believe. She was teaching Marshallese, and then in some ways she would always try to put the nuclear issue, teaching the kids about it. And I would always ask her, why are you teaching for free when we need money to buy food? And she said, I'm serving the Lord. This is what I do. Do not say anything. So whenever I'm like, okay. Because myself, I wasn't a Christian. Back then, I wasn't a Christian. I didn't even go to church. I'm sorry. But my mom was a very Christian woman. But the one thing about her, she never even pushed me to go to church. My mom is a woman that let people think for themselves. She say her piece, and if you listen, and she'll welcome that. And I think that's what got her through all her hardship and all her sorrow through her life, is her belief. She was an incredible woman, I could say that. And I'm proud to be her daughter. I'm not really going to talk about Castle Bravo because Tejiro already described it, but I'm going to actually say, there's a video I wanted to show, a little bit of the life of the people back then. The lady that's talking first in the video is my mother's auntie, and she's the former mayor, the first mayor's wife of Rongolat, Michua Anseng. After 1954, their son died a year later. And she will say in the but she's speaking Marshallese. That's why I'm trying to explain. So there's no subtitles. Sorry.
Like a string of pearls, the Marshall Islands stretch across 500,000 square miles of the world's deepest water. A heavenly necklace of coral atolls. Except there is little harmony in this paradise. Michua Anjan.
I don't like the American people or the American government. They have destroyed our culture.
3, 2, 1, fire.
"66 atomic bombs were detonated on the evacuated islands of Eniwetok and Bikini. The Cold War was hot, and America didn't need to seek approval from anyone, least of all the Marshallese. It was history's most massive atmospheric testing program, and one of the U.S. military's most remarkable public relations campaigns.
Well, now then, James, will you tell them that the United States government now wants to turn this great destructive force into something good for mankind? Something good for mankind. All right, is that all?
Okay, got it. Convinced or coerced, hundreds of Marshallese were removed from their home islands, but not from harm's way. On March 1st, 1954, the world's largest hydrogen bomb cracked the sky above Bikini with a force twice as great as scientists had expected, showering the islands with radioactive fallout. Children played in it as if it were snow.
Since the time of the bomb, things have never been right with the children. I had my thyroid taken out. My son died of leukemia. He was 1 year old at the time of the bomb.
Michua and her husband John, like countless other islanders, were never warned about the bomb. At the time, John was mayor of Rongelap Atoll and among a small group of Marshallese who were later brought to the U.S. for radiation testing and a lesson in arrogance.
These are fishing people, savages by our standards. The Marshallese caught by fallout got 175 roentgens of radiation. Most humans are exposed to less than 20 roentgens in a lifetime. John, as we said, is a savage, but a happy, amenable savage.
For John Angine, these black and white memories have drained much of the color from his life.
There were many more problems after the bomb. The women are giving birth to children that are not like human beings. Those that survive have trouble growing and mental retardation as well.
Recent medical studies confirm long-term effects are still appearing. In a 1986 study, 91% of the Marshallese tested had radiation-induced blood disorders, and the same report found double the normal rate of stillbirths and miscarriages.
I have 7 miscarriages.
Lejeanne Eknalane's 8th birthday fell on the day the bomb was dropped. 7 miscarriages later, she has not forgiven the United States.
I knew that if it wasn't what the United States have done for me and my family, my kids should be growing up like the others.
Was Bikini a mistake? Was Rongelap a mistake?
Oh, inevitably they were, but certainly not intentional mistakes.
Colonel Philip Harris commanded the U.S. military base on Kwajalein Atoll. He says Marshallese fears about long-term contamination are unwarranted.
Just from the standpoint of safety, would you go back to Bikini and live?
I've been on Bikini. There is absolutely no background radiation, 0. There is less background radiation on Bikini than there is in the capital of the United States. The only difficulty is the cesium.
That's cesium-137. It's contaminated island plants and topsoil.
The reason I chose this video to show it is second, the newspaper, the documentary I was saying, you can hear in the voice it says, these people are fishing people. They are savages. And then they say they don't need, at that time they didn't need the consent of the Marshall Islands to do testing. But since one word from this gave the U.S. permission to do it from the Marshall Islands. It's from the people of beginning. It was for the good of mankind. But when it was translated in Marshallese, even in the black, it's in the Pyginian flag, it says, in Marshallese it says, Alep men et per human being anich, which translates to English says, everything is under God's hand. And back then, people in the Marshall Islands were Christian people. They believed in God and nothing else. If it is God's word, then it is God's word. God is going to save us from anything. So these people left their island. Until now, 70 years later, they haven't been back to their island. Island in the Marshall Islands is like our identity. It's something that is really, really important to us. Me, I'm living in Majuro, but it's not my island. They're Marshallese, we're Marshallese, but that's not my island. Every island in the Marshall Islands belongs to chiefs. We call them chiefest, like kings or queen, we view my chief in English. So they're the one that own the island. They have the right to kick you out of the island or let you stay. The government doesn't have any say in it. So even if you build a big castle, if they send you out of that, they won't, you lose everything. But we even as Rongelapese, we haven't been to Rongelap. We're all scattered around. We're all either on Ibai, Majuro, Right now, there's only a few on Mejato in the state. We're all scattered around because we don't have a place to go back home to. This picture is, I chose this barbed wire picture and the picture of the kids because it's there's a story behind it. In 1954, 3 days after the Castle Bravo, the U.S. came, the army came and took the people of Ronglap to Kwajalein. So they put them in a camp, military camp-like place where they can do their where they can do their monitoring and start their testing. So they were all around. It's like a big camp. They did this just so that the people won't run away when they were trying to get their urine and blood tests. So no escape. It's like a prison. When you talk to the survivors, they would say it was a prison. For them, they felt like they couldn't do anything because they would have the military guys running after them if they didn't want to, because they were afraid because they were going to pull their teeth out to check if they have any radiation between their teeth. These boys, I saw a picture of a brother and a sister at the museum yesterday, at the Peach Museum, and they were standing without hair. And then when I saw that picture there, it kind of hit something in me. It made me really down, made me feel sad, because something like, you can see the kids like that. And it was all because of the nuclear, that these kids are like this. Can you imagine how, if we were, I can't even imagine it. The Project 4.1, it all just started back in sorry about that. when they were doing like this Project 4.1, it was when they were doing testing for the people without them knowing it. They were doing it on Kwajalein when they took them, and you can see the plate there. It's like they don't have names. They just have numbers. In some of them, they have like other ones. I don't think I'm going to be showing it here, but they only have like 2 numbers, 4, 2 year and 2 year, without any name down here. I believe it was from their radiation. They were checking. They were saying, this is their radiation and this is their number. This was their identification, that they can see who it is by how many level of radiation they had in them. One of the late girls over there at the far end, she's younger than my mom. I'll show her in the other picture, slideshow at the back. She was 7 years old when they were taking a picture of her. Project 4.1, the people never knew about it. There was any record about it, anything, until years later when the U.S. gave the Marshall Islands some files that we were asking them to give us. It was the classified files that they gave us, and we declassified. They declassified when they gave it to us. And this is some of the information that they found out. You heard in the video that they were talking about abnormal kids. The survivors, when they were in some of their testimony, they were saying that they had babies like this. They didn't have babies like this before, but this all happened after the Bravo shot. They had babies that this. You can look at the picture of the boy. The only thing the boy can do is just look up and open his mouth. He cannot move his hand, leg, anything. He doesn't know how to eat. The mother is feeding the baby. That's how he was. He was one of those kids that is absent-minded, like it doesn't know how to think. Not that you know how to think, but it's just not there. They just back in 1957, when they returned the people back from Kwajalein to Rongelap, when they said it was safe to go back. They said, oh, now it's safe for you guys to go back, but please do not eat food from the other side of the island. There was a reason for that. But they didn't tell them the reason. They said, do not go to the north part of Rongelap to get food. So they just stayed there. But of course, they ran out of supplies for food. So they had to go look for food where the place is contaminated. And there's in the bottom of the banner, it says in Marshall, it says, Puromit ed erom langilang. In English, it says, sadness turned to happiness. They were happy because they went back to their island. They were not in another island that they were afraid of, but they were in their own island that they were free to move around, free to do what they were doing, but they were told not to go look for food. This is when they were returning back to Rongelap in 1957. So they were, actually the people of Rongelap were living in Echet. Echet is right next to Majuro. I don't know if it's in this screen, but Majuro is the capital of the Marshall Island. It's like in the Ratak chain. Ratak chain. So they have to took their people from the Ratak chain to the Ratak chain. So they dug up the grave so they can take back the body of their loved one to Rongelap. So they dug it up and they're putting it in here so they can take it to the boat. And I believe in Mejato there's a lot of Rongelapis that died. And the people have said, if we move to Rongelap, we were going to take all the people, our family that we buried. When they moved back, this is what they were eating. USDA food, which contained of luncheon meat, fruit cocktail, pineapple drinks, grape drinks, in cans. This is what they gave them, and then they have to distribute it among the family. But it's gonna run out, so this is one of my uncle, a long time ago. So this is in Rongelap also. This is when the Peace Corps, the Rainbow Boat, came to Rongelap to take the people from Rongelap to Mejato where they're living now. The reason why they came and took them because the U.S. did a survey monitoring all Rongelap a few years back to see if there's still how the level is, if it's safe for them to stay or to go. And they found out in 82 that it was not safe for the people to live there. So in 85 they moved. So, and the lady in the pink is my grandmother, is my mother's mother. So they were welcoming the people that's going to pick them up, and also they were saying goodbye to their island. So that lady over there was you can see that she was sad that she was leaving. They were happy that there were people coming and picking up because when they were staying in Rongelap at that time, people were getting sick, and then the U.S. didn't come and pick them up. The Peace Corps they had to request from the government to ask if any help that they can find, and the Peace Corps was there in the Marshall at that time doing volunteer work. So they came and took the people of Rongelap to Mejato. In 85, they went and set up their home. And you can see the men and the lovely grandmother there. trying to make what you might call a husher or a roof for the house. We saw the USDA food here. Now this is what the people of Mayato are getting for their food supply. So this is part of the compact that is with not part part of the compact that is money for the Rongalabese people. They have a supplemental fund or some fund for food because the people of Mayato don't work, and this is what they get every quarter. They send them food like this. These are some pictures that I picked for the people of Rongalab. The girl upstairs, this is mostly, it happened to the survivors and then also for the ones that went back home. Right after the Bravo shot, there were some folks that when the Bravo shot landed, was dropped, they were not on island. They were not on Rongalab. They were in faraway islands. So they didn't really get direct, nuclear effect from it. They got it when they went back to Rongalab and eat all the food. And years later, this is the effect of it. This is the result of it. That girl upstairs, she's a bit older than me. But when I was young, I used to go and she was my size. When I went back in high school, I was taller than her. But she had the same face. I might be a bit older than her, but my face look older than her, but her face is still the same. But her teeth is like growing. It's like you can tell that it's getting bigger. That the only part in her is her teeth. She has some bone. I don't know what to call it. And that baby there is one of my cousin's baby. It happened like years ago. Not recently, probably like 10 or 15 years ago. It was unmarried. The baby doesn't have any ears and nose. There's a picture of it, but there's no. This baby passed away. So the mother wanted for them to take a picture of the baby so she can show it. It was really, really sad. You can see the other kids over there. They said they didn't have any nutrition with them, but no. You can ask the ladies long time ago. Said the survivors say they never had babies like kids like this. That didn't even. That when they're born they were abnormal. This all happened after the Bravo shot. Of course, the U.S. are going to say it's not. And this is the lady that I was talking about. My auntie, Nerje Tojep. She was only 7 years old. She's the one that took care of me while my mom was going out in the world and telling her stories and telling the story of the people of the Marshall Islands and the nuclear effect and trying to find a way so that this lady took care of me. And she and my mother are the only two out of my grandmother, out of their sibling, they're the only one that was on Rongalab. And she got really, really burned because she was on Rongalab while my mom was on Island Inay. But my mom was indoor. For her, she was outside playing with what they call the snow. They thought it was snow, so they did. Some were opening their mouth, some were did, oh, this snow. She is one of those that scrubbed it to her hair. Until she passed away last year, she was walking like this, and you have all blister in her head, in her finger, and then her throat. They have removed 3 thyroids from her throat. It was so. I don't know how she even survived until last year. You could see that she was always walking and it was it was sad to see how she was. But amazing that she was still alive until last year. If you guys want to know more about her, I think she has a couple people that have come and interview her. So they're on Google or YouTube. So she's there too. She's a very lovely lady. She's my second mother. I miss. Now this is Ronglap. When you see all these pretty houses, the church, we have since we're a very Christian people, we always renovate our church. First thing we always renovate is the church. These houses came years later. We have a road that is not much, probably the only other island in the Marshall Island that has this kind of road. All the other ones are bumpy. You cannot. These houses, they're like 20 houses, but nobody lives in them. 3-bedroom house with nobody living in them. Because at one point, the my people were going to go back home. And the government said, no. The Army government said, no. You guys are not going back. The U.S. government hasn't even given us that it is safe to go back home. So there's nobody. There's only the probably I'm not going to go to the pictures. Nobody living in the houses. This is an aerial shot of Ronglap. You can see those places they only clean, but these places they never clean. In the slide before, I said when they moved back in 1957, they told them do not go to the north part of the island to look for food. What is there if they're not cleaning that? What is the reason for that? They only clean one area. It's the middle of Ronglap, which they say is safe. They build houses for the people to live in. What about the other places? They never, even until now, they never even came in. And until now, they're not telling us it's safe to go back home. With these houses they built, but they're not saying it's safe to go back home. These are pictures for some of the survivors from Ronglap a long time ago. This picture was very important to my mom. So it was in my house, and I think they took a picture of it because these are her writing. She would wrote on it and wrote the name, and I'm like, why would you write names? She's like, so you can know. She knows who they are, but she's like for the younger generation to know them. Or if I'm mistaken, my mother is at the far end, that side. My mother was a pretty lady when she was young. She was very skinny and now I'm gonna talk about me, how I got to know about my legacy and my mother's story. In the Marshall Islands, it's hard to talk about stuff that are gonna somehow be affected the culture in some ways. And I believe the reason why the women of Ronglap never really actually talk domestically to the people and tell them their story is because of what happened to them, what they did, what happened in Kwajalein when they took them to Kwajalein, lined them all up, the family, the father, the uncle, the mother, the auntie, the sister, the daughter, put them in all one place before they went and took some sample from them. They hosed them down, they told them to soak them, and then they hosed them down again. But they were all standing. This story I heard from my auntie herself. She was telling me, she was saying, oh, I remember a long time ago and then my uncle and them, and they were saying things that and then her eyes was watery, and I'm like, why is she laughing? Because to me, I'm like, why you even tell? I didn't want to hear it, but she was trying to tell her story. So this book, it was sent by one of my mother's friend. She's a very famous author. She wrote a book about Daughter of the Pacific. I think I probably was 6 or 7 years old at that time. She sent this book to me while I was in college in '99. It came to the mail. They're like, "Yo, Evelyn, you got a mail." Well, okay. I thought it was my mom was sending me tuna or something from home. But so I'm like, what is this? So I call on my mom. Mom, what are you sending me a picture? And who's this? What is this? I don't want to read a book. And she's like, who's it from? So I told her it's from Seoul. And she's like, why don't you open it and read it? I'm like, what is it about? She's like, just open it and read it. I'm like, what is this girl look familiar? And she's like, because that's you. I'm like, oh. I'm like, why would you tell people to take picture of me when I don't have any shirt on? I got mad and what is that in my head? And she's like, that was one of the best pictures. Because I'm never, you will see all of my mom's interview videos, you will never see me in it. Because I was never in them because I always blame my mom for leaving me and my son for months and months without me knowing what she was doing. She would never explain it to me. She would never tell me where she's going. Nothing. She just leave for months, come back. And then I realized I grew up without a mother. And then I opened the book, and there was I kind of look at the in-text and see, well, the Marshall Islands. And then there was Darling Kechu, and then there was Lijon Agriela. Oh, why is my mother's name in it? So I went to the page that her story is featured, and then I started reading it. Come to find out, it was a story on my mother of how she lost. She was telling in the video how she had miscarriage, and in one of hers, she was saying that one of the child had only one eye. I didn't even continue reading it. I just stopped there. I'm like, what is this? That kind of made me realize that what if there's more to the story than when my mom was being conned all the time? What is she not telling me that I wanted to? I would ask her, sometimes she would not tell me, she'd brush it up. Because I think it was too hard for her to talk to me or my brother about what happened to her. So that's how I started, because I was curious. Now I wanted to learn what really happened, but I always kept my mother's story. I would go learn about the other survivors from other Udruk and them, but I've never, even later on I did. I had to pull up all my courage to listen to my mother's story, watch her videos, but before I was like, I'm not gonna. Because just by opening it, it was too sad for me to be. It was shocking. So I started researching, and then I went back home during one of my breaks from college. And then I went and I saw in my mother's group. They had an NGO group. It was survivors. So it's called IRUP, which means Enuwetak Rongalap. The spelling of Enuwetak Rongalap Wuturuk Pigindi. Those are the 4 atolls islands that got affected by the fallout. Probably shock. When IRUP in English is explosive. Is in one thing breaks. And I'm like, wow, those old people were really smart, because they were all survivors are all old. They were old for me that time. I'm like, they're very smart. The meaning of IRUP in English is explosion. And I'm like, wow, they couldn't be. I was amazed by them. But I was their secretary, so I learned firsthand how, I invited people, read their letter, translate their Marshall Lee's speech to English. So I did a lot of stuff for them for free. So that's where my journey of learning more about uh, what happened to the people of the Marshall Islands, especially the people from Roland. So I worked with them for a year, and then I went back to school. In 2015, while I was in school, I was invited by the Nuclear Peace Foundation, which is stationed in the U.S. in Santa Barbara. I was invited to go talk about my mother, and unfortunately, I couldn't really finish my speech because somebody wrote the speech to me, and then it had all my mother's detail of what happened to her, and I got really emotional that I couldn't finish my speech. That I told them if I can skip that part and then talk about the Marshall Islands, the nuclear legacy there. So this guy over here is a former minister and former envoy for nuclear justice and climate change, Donity Broom. And he is one of those that fought and tried hard to get the Project 4.1 files from the U.S. He's well known all over the world. And he's really close to my mom and me, myself, because I've worked with him. And he's a really, really, really kind and really, he had that will too. And we Marshallies are really lucky because of him. He opened a path for us to move forward and wanting to follow what he's been doing. But unfortunately, he passed a couple years ago. These are some of the organizers that they were there. I forgot. I'm really bad at names, sorry. But these are big people. They're one of those that talk about nuclear, wanting to abolish nuclear. They're one of those activists that are really in the front line of trying to stop nuclear, or even not stopping or making it going away. In 2008, a friend of mine, we were working together in Hawaii while I was living in Hawaii. He came in and said, Evelyn, there's a lady from France. Her name is Fabienne Liptumas. So I was always amazed by Liptumas. Fabienne. So she's like, there's a French lady who wants to talk to you about you featuring in a film documentary that she's doing it for nuclear for the Pacific Islands. So I'm like, okay. And then she came and we met, and she was talking. Her accent was all French, and I couldn't understand some of it. I'm like, okay, I don't know what she's doing, so I don't know what she's saying. So my friend, he was the translator, so he translated. So this film started in 2008. She followed me in Honolulu, my life there, my job, and everything about it. And then we went back home, and she talked to my mom. And we also went in, I interviewed some of the survivors, and some are in the film. If you guys want to watch it, and then you guys can also see it in Amazon and YouTube. And I think it is a Chinese, excuse me, Japanese. I think I want to eat Chinese food or something. Japanese subtitle. I'm sorry. Excuse me. This one I included because it's always fascinating to me and then making me think I'm stupid for not even knowing what this is. This is a body count that they have it on eBay in one of the facilities for the U.S. Department of Energy. They have a small office on Major. In one of their office, they have something that looks similar like this. This is where they see they body count. They see how much radiation, if you have any radiation in you. And when I saw this, accidentally I saw it when I went with an ambassador that I work with. I used to before I work at National Nuclear Commission, I used to work at U.S. Embassy. I worked there for 8 years. So the ambassador asked me to take him here. Let's go so I can check my body count. I'm like, okay. So we went in. I'm like, oh, you want to take his, because the marshals worker. They're like, okay, come in, ambassador. So we went in and I was looking. I've never been there. I've never seen one. I'm like, what are you doing? And then you went in. I'm like, as soon as I saw this, the thing there, I'm like, a memory just clicked in my mind. It's like a light just went on. Something that probably I put it in back of my head or in the memory in my brain somewhere. It got locked up. And then I'm like, oh, I know what that is. I'm like, now I remember it. I remember them, like when we came back from Ronglab in '85, there were 2 boats that would come twice a year. One for girls and one for boys. And I was one of the kids that went on because my mother was a survivor. So they took us there and, they welcomed us with new clothes, white clothes, cookies and stuff, and I was like so happy. No, I want to eat it. And then when I saw it, I'm like, those people they were testing on it. They were trying to see if they came for a couple of years and they stopped. Not only on Mejato, not Ibay, but they did on Mejato and Major too. But this is on Ibay when I was growing up. And I'm like, why didn't I even think about that? I've never even questioned it because I was a kid and it was a food. And now I know I'm like, they were really, really trying to see if I get to back up some of their stories so they can. Now I want to talk about my job, where I work. I work at National Nuclear Commission, which is RMI government entity. It's under the president, RMI president's office. You see this is ICC. This is where the president's office is. Our office is upstairs, on the 2nd floor. The office was established in February of 2017 under the administration of Hilda Heine, President Hilda Heine. She was the first president in the Pacific as a woman. So she's the one established this office. The reason why she established this office is because of all the ongoing project that we still need to do, that the American still need to acknowledge and all that. So when the office was established, the government asked my bosses now that you guys need to give us 5 pillars on what you guys gonna do now until later on. See if we can still open your office. So they sit around and this is what they came up with. It's compensation, which is for the U.S. to pay full award issued by the Nuclear Claims Tribunal for property damage and personal injuries. When the first compact was issued between the U.S. and the RMI, there was a part for compensation for the people of the 4 adults that got affected. It started they were giving money and then it stopped in sometime in 2013 or not 2013. Probably earlier. I'm sorry. So it stopped because the U.S. says there's no more money. But we have so many claimants that haven't even paid. But luckily, if within this compact that they're working on, they'll bring the money back. Healthcare, which is in the RMI, we don't, especially for the people that were affected by the Bravo shot, we don't have any kind of health center that is specifically for victims of nuclear. No such thing. There's a 177, which is a program that the U.S. and they gave to the RMI when they first signed the compact in 19. It's a money that they gave to the 4 adults that to take care of the health care, which is the quality of the hair care is checking your blood pressure, checking your sugar level. Like we don't have any doctors or anything that it is for them on manual. They have to go to the regular doctor to see, like the hospital, but there's no cancer center or cancer care or nothing for, especially for the survivors. And one of the things that the NNC, my office is trying to do, is trying to, even in the state, for the U.S. to acknowledge or especially put a hospital that would be for the survivors, for quality health care, not only going there to monitor if they have any radiation with them and stuff like this, but really fully check them. Environment, it's like we saw in Ronglap, it's not even clean. Ronglap and Bikini people haven't gone back to their island. They've been scattered around the island. Bikini it's in Edges right now, in Kili and all over the place. National capacity is to bring experts from outside so they can teach the people of the Marshall Islands, especially on how to monitor and understand and respond or know about radioactive or anything that is nuclear, so that we can all our own and know, don't listen to any, like the U.S., we don't believe, we have to know our own result and believe it, because now right now we're not believing anything, but we have to have our own expert that would be caring about their own, because it's their countrymen. And lastly is education and awareness. I mean, since the reason why right now the level of education about nuclear in the Marshall Islands is very, very low. It wasn't taught when I was in high school, when I was in elementary school. It was never taught. The only thing we were taught is American history and a little bit about American RMI government, the structure of the history of the government. So the education and awareness now is under this is what I do at the NNC. I go out and teach the kids about nuclear, not teach. I go out and do learning because I'm not a teacher. I just want to let them know and aware that there is nuclear issue is a history. It's part of our Marshall Island history. It's not just a happening, but it's a history. This is when we were talking about the compensation. This is the tribunal office, where all the claims, files of people, survivors, and their claim, their sickness, and all the claims is there. And this is one of our worker, Emma. So Emma, to all the entering, she's the one who look if they're qualified for any claim. So she put them in the computer, and right now she's doing data entry to the computer. Because when tribunal was closed, they didn't have anywhere to put all of these files. They were scattered around. The office was closed and they were just going unattended. But when NNC was open, part of why NNC was open is because of tribunal. All these files for the survivors, the claims. So she's working on it. So she's trying to handle everything inside the database. She's doing it she's manually putting them in there, one by one, because they're all written by. So it's hard for her. She's around in her 60s or something. She's doing all of that work. This is what I do. I go to school. I don't do it by a large crowd. I do it by small crowd, grade 5 and 6. The reason why I'm doing that because I want the kids to really, really listen and then respond. So I always have I always play game with them so it can get their interest. It's hard to get kids' interest. So especially about things that they don't understand and they don't. But I try to see where the level is and where, like you see this, they're pretty much happy. But when I ask them, what is nuclear or what is, they say, oh, bomb. And I said, do you know anything about the nuclear in the Marshall Islands? Oh, yes. And I say, where did it happen? They said, I don't know, somewhere. They don't know. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm like, just okay, we're learning. So I tell them, and they're like, oh, they remember. And they're like, one of them are, oh, and then I said, there's 4 islands that the U.S. claim it said it would. And then they're like, oh, wrong in the beginning. They don't know other 2. They don't know when it started. They don't know how many bombs that happened in the Marshall Islands. They don't know anything. It's like you're teaching them from scratch. They only they don't know. They only know a little bit, which is really sad, and which is why I love going out and doing it. So I always do this. So, and also part of when NNC was open, when it started, one of our goals is, I mean, it's already happened. We have already worked with the government's public school system to input a curriculum that nuclear needs to be taught at school. Now it's starting from 5th to 12th grade. So every week I go to school just to talk to these kids, which I love doing it. And this one I was outside doing a career fair. It was much higher, like high school student and all that. And they're particularly really bad than these kids. They don't know anything. At least these kids know a little bit. These ones, they don't know anything at all, which is really surprising. But you know, and then when you talk to them, I get the feel it's probably because they think, well, you can see that I'm shorter than them. They're probably like, oh, she's young. I'm really old. But they're like I connect with them in that area. They can see that they can comfortable talking to me and like, oh, and then I get their interest and I'm like, oh, they want to learn more, so I go to their school. This was taken recently when I left, before I came here. So this is a Catholic school. These are grade 6 and 7. It was really interesting because they were actually asking questions. They did not know the answer, but they were asking questions. So it was really fun working with them. These are learning in process, but this is what I want to do. There's a feeling I'm going out and teaching about nuclear to these kids every time I go out. So it's it's challenging, but I really, really believe that in order for me to leave my mother legacy or the RMI nuclear history to be heard and taught is I need to teach those kids. Because these kids are the ones that are going to bring it up later on. If it's gone, then part of our history will be gone. And that I really don't want to do. That's why I keep on continuing. That's why I went and worked at National Nuclear Commission. This is what I always ask my kids whenever we're getting, like saying goodbye and I tell them my piece and all that. I always ask them, what is nuclear justice to you? Now their answer will always be, oh, why don't we do do something back to them. You know, they're kids, they think that. And I was like, oh. And I would keep on asking them. And then one kid would be saying, nuclear justice to me is a peaceful world. Somewhere I will run around, not be afraid of running around, not be afraid of anything. To live in a greener world, they say, then that, I believe, someday it will happen. It may be not for our generation, but the next generation. If we keep on fighting for abolishment of nuclear to be not in this world, I don't think we need nuclear. But so this is what I'll leave you guys with. What is nuclear justice to you? Como tada, that's my end of my presentation. And thank you. Arigato. Gozaimasu.
ございます。Komortata means thank you very much in Masari language. So, Lukun komortata. Okay. So, it's you make a speech for 1 hour and 20 minutes. 1 hour and 20 minutes you made a speech. But I think if you have some question to her directly, it's up some time. So if somebody would like to ask to her, why don't you raise a hand? Okay.
Hi, thank you very much for sharing your story and your mother's experience and your work. I've learned a lot today. What year did your mother become a councilwoman?
I'm sorry?
What year did your mother become a councilwoman?
Councilwoman?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It was in the 80s. I was little when she was a councilwoman. It's either 83, but around 1980. But she was a councilwoman for 2 terms in 1980 up until early 1990.
Thank you. And so you are focusing on, or part of your work is focusing on nuclear justice and educating students and keeping the history alive, keeping this work alive. Does the NNC have other focuses as well, other areas of society for education?
Like, you mean?
Let me see, either adults or
like community awareness and stuff like that. Yeah, we do. We haven't started because I'm really, like I was telling you, I'm new there. I just started last year, August. So part of what I'm trying to do is work with the community, is collaborating with the NGOs. Because they're the one, we have a small budget that the government give us. So I'm trying to, like, what you might call it, collaborate, so I can get not a free ride, but get a little bit of help from the NGOs. Now they'll be talking about health issues, like women issues, but I'll be talking about nuclear. So there's a lot of awareness that is going on in the Marshall Islands, other than nuclear. But I've started talking to NGOs that if we can collaborate more on doing outreach, on doing stuff like that, it'd be more effective. That you will be talking about this part, health, youth will be talking about climate change, we'll be talking about nuclear justice, nuclear history or legacy of the Marshall Islands. So that's what I have some young folks that I'm working with also, the Jojigam. So they're very, very active in climate change, and they really help us in doing outreach about nuclear justice. So yeah, we have a plan on doing like some other project on like doing like conferences with the youth on nuclear and doing all sort of stuff. We have a lot of stuff that we're planning on doing with the community, because I think not only the students, but it's also all of the RMI know a little bit the issue of nuclear leakage there is dying down because of any awareness or anything anywhere in our education is so lacking. And I believe in collaboration with other NGOs and government, like the schools and stuff, will really help in doing awareness about nuclear leakage in the Marshall Islands.
Thank you very much.
And we also look forward to working with people from outside on nuclear issues. And I hope I get some partner here. We can do collaboration from there to here. And with the story of, with the history of Japan nuclear history, legacy, and RMI legacy, there'll be a lot of collaboration here. Thank you.
Do you have other questions? もし何でしたら日本語でも構いませんし、皆さんそうすると通訳の方もいらっしゃいますし。
通訳お願いします。
はい。大丈夫ですか、松本さん。お願いいたします。
エベリンさん、今日は、午前中日本語で、午後英語で、私たちのためにお話をくださってありがとうございました。
Thank you, Evelyn. You've been talking to us in Japanese in the morning and then in English in the afternoon. You've shared a lot of time with us. Thank you.
私たちはこの話を聞いて、世界のグローバル被爆者を支援するために協力していきたいという気持ちを持っています。
We have a very strong interest in working together for the global Hibakusha, the nuclear victims around the world, and then we would like to work with you.
そこで一つお尋ねしたいんですけれども、マーシャル諸島の被爆者をはじめ、世界のこのグローバル被爆者をどのように支援する方法、組織、基金、どのような形で進めていけばいいか、何かアイデアがありませんか？
So if we are to work with you and collaborate with you in addressing to support the global the nuclear victims around the globe, and including Marshall Islands, what are the specific methods and approach or instruments that we could extend our support through? Meaning that what would be the best way to channel our support to you, to the victims in Marshall Islands, for example?
I met professor yesterday, Professor Robert Jacob, and then he mentioned a project that he did back in years and years ago that he went to the Marshall Islands. And he brought kids, a student two from Hiroshima here, and two from Kazakhstan to come and talk, to do a training to teach the kids to get ownership of learning about their own history, so they can teach the others. So I don't know what happened to that program, but I think those are kind of programs that I want to bring collaboration and bring other people from other countries so they can share their history, also nuclear history story with the young people there.
いろいろな方法があると思うんですけれども、例えば日本で、日本から日本やカザフスタンなどから、核被害の体験があるところからの人々、若者を、マーシャル諸島に送って、そして、それぞれの国でどのような取り組みが行われているのかということを、学ぶと同時に、マーシャル諸島の実態ということも、若い人たちに知ってもらうことによって、彼らがまた日本に帰ってきて、マーシャル諸島の実態を知ってくれるという、そのような、青年たちを増やしていくということなんかも考えられると思います。
The reason I'm saying that is when I went to the Peace Museum yesterday, it's something that, and knowing the student that I've worked with and knowing that age, and the people also, the Marshallese people are really interested in visual thing, like from visual way. That museum is just out of this world. It's showcase what really happened here. I mean, not really, but it showcase. It gives you that feeling that you were there, and it makes you really feel it, that the effect of it, the sadness of it, the story of it. And people from the Marshall Islands really, you would tell them, but they need to see and experience, see for themselves. Like when people are coming that have experienced that, telling them, it will wow them away. But if I were to go back and talk about Hiroshima and what happened here, they're like, you're not Japanese, why would you know anything about it? And what I will get them is showing them the pictures and the things that I have seen and experienced here, or even seen by looking, giving them a visual of. And I think the presence of someone from here, there, and doing collaboration, talk about, like me coming here and talk about Marshall Islands, stuff like that.
例えば私が今回、博物館、展示会に連れてっていただいたときに、やはり何か本当に実際に写真を見たりとか、実際にこの広島で起こったことっていうのを直接見たり聞いたりすることで、自分自身も広島で起こった悲しみやそのについて理解を深めることができたという体験をしました。でそういう体験が、例えばマーシャル諸島の子どもたちもそういう体験がもっとできたらかな。私がただ話すだけというのではなく、彼らも実際に来て見るように。でそれは同じように日本からもしくはカザフスタンなど他の国から、人々がマーシャル諸島を訪ねてくださり、実際に話をしてくださることによって、また、私が話すよりももっと説得力のある、話ができるんじゃないかと思っています。そのように人々の交流が増えていることによって、お互いの理解が深められていく、そして協力ができるんじゃないかと思っています。
And also for churches. And those are other places that I wanted to work with, because with the community churches there, they also don't really do any activities about nuclear. And I think those are the audience also that we need to And then I believe if a mission from here or you can come there and talk to them, that would, because the Marshallese are really, that would really inspire the church, and because we haven't really worked with them, and that's some of the project that we wanted to. It's through the churches too. And if a mission here from the church come and talk about the Hiroshima, they will, they will really just come up and talk about Marshall Island legacy.
それから教会を通した協力で、教会を通した協力っていうのもとても大切なんじゃないかと思います。例えば、日本から、東京マーシャル諸島にキリスト教関係者がいらしてくださって、そして日本で起こった広島や長崎の体験を実際に話してくださること、そういうことも大切だと思いますし、それからまたマーシャル諸島の関係者が日本に来てこのような体験をする、そのようなことも大切と思います。特にマーシャルの社会ではキリスト教の教会、諸派の教会が大変すごくネットワークが広いので、そういうような形での交流というのもまた大きな役割があると思います。
Thank you for your question.
Do you have any answer? I think it's a time to go feast. Feast? Okay. So thank you so much. It's a time to finish the session, but I believe this kind of conversation, this time is just a beginning toward the nuclear justice. Evelyn asked to you what the nuclear justice is. Please think about that based on the experience of Hiroshima or based on the experience of the Marshall Island. Now we are just learning. Please continue to think about that, what the nuclear justice. Thank you very much.